talking.
What do you do when presented with a story whose conclusion leaves you feeling as though you were probably better off never hearing it in the first place? It's not all that uncommon to find an unsettling story that just won't leave you alone, when something's so awful that your brain refuses to accept it, instead running it through your mind repeatedly until eventually you simply give up on trying to make sense of it. This is one of those stories, one I couldn't stop thinking about. Night Delivery is a game by Chilla's Art, a short indie horror experience that takes us through a night at Nakayoshi Apartments. And the story behind this game has stuck with me for almost a year now. There are pieces that I've never been able to fully reconcile within my mind, an overarching storyline that I've walked through time and time again, each attempt to find a satisfying conclusion, resulting in more disillusionment. And it hasn't stopped bothering me. Maybe the discomfort was the point. Maybe not. Let's find out. We're in the shoes of a delivery driver whose final stop of the night is the Nakayoshi apartment complex, a massive 5-story building housing dozens of residents. And we're introduced to them one by one as we proceed through delivering the last few packages of the night. The drunken salaryman we deliver the first package to is angry at us for taking such a long time to arrive, going so far as to throw a water bottle at us in frustration. A good start to the night. Then there's the lady who insists on giving us a can of cat food for our efforts. Not a great tip for a delivery driver, but this interaction reoriented me a little bit. It grounded me in a reality that was familiar after the weird water bottle incident. This is someone who's so happy to receive her delivery that she hands us a little gift. Sure, it's bizarre, but we do find a use for this cat food. It allows us to feed the stray cat by the dumpsters, the same cat stopping us from approaching otherwise. While the cat enjoys its dinner, we look inside the dumpster and find a letter.
Kohei, how are you doing? How's the new apartment? In the previous apartment, you had to move because the residents there weren't so kind to you. Is everything okay this time? Before, there were people who made a fool of themselves about disabilities and welfare, right? I've said it many times before. You weren't the bad one. Don't blame yourself. Also, don't be too impatient with getting a job. Kohei, you're my son. You'll be okay. Things will get better. Mom.
This letter reveals a lot of information to us immediately. We learn that Kohei is a tenant of Nakayoshi Apartments, a tenant with a troubled past of abuse and mental illness, it seems. He has a new home and new neighbors, but his exposition-dumping mother still seems to have worries despite her hopeful tone. This is the first time the idea of disabilities and welfare being the cause of social exclusion is referenced, but the game only does so through the lens of a worried parent. It doesn't contextualize this as a broader social issue or as something imposed by a system. It remains personal for now. In the same parking area as the dumpsters, we can find the water bottle that was thrown at us earlier. This allows us to fill up this stray dog's water bowl behind the building, revealing another letter.
Kohei, have you gotten used to the new environment? You said you were doing your best to get along with everyone in the apartment. Did you get along well? I know that you are very kind. I hope other people can feel that too. Start with one person first. Also, it's okay to work slowly. You tend to think pessimistically. Try to think positively. By the way, how's the dog? Aikichi, was it? Show me the dog next time, okay? Mom.
This second letter doesn't introduce new information so much as it clarifies who Kohei is. He's attempting to integrate, he's trying to form connections one person at a time. He has a dog, responsibilities, and someone who believes in his kindness. The game is positioning him as someone still participating in the world, rather than someone retreating from it. Most importantly though, this explains who the dog is. Aikichi might be the best character in the show. As we deliver more packages, we meet one of the more interesting tenants of Nakayoshi Apartments, Michiru. Michiru, hidden from the outside world by his dark hoodie and corner apartment, a person who's so worried about something that he barely even opens the door to receive his package. As it turns out, though, he doesn't even want it. He talks about being scared, wondering why we're not also terrified.
This whole place, it's like I'm becoming a part of them.
He quickly ends this thought process and tells us to forget about it before revealing that he hasn't left his room in a very long time. He distrusts us, instead pointing us towards the priest in apartment 105. He refuses to accept the package unless this priest can sanctify it. The priest, who demands a large sum of money in exchange for his services, strikes me as particularly odd. He doesn't seem to care about anything more than extorting money from Michiru, something Michiru is more than willing to oblige, going so far as to spend his entire monthly budget for these services that he seems to hold in such high regard. Eventually, after a few back and forth trips, Michiru finally accepts the package, apologizing to the priest under his breath before telling us to go away and slamming the door. At first, this felt to me like a comment on religion, but the more important detail here is Michiru's fear of contamination. We've learned at this point through the 2 letters from Kohei's mother that Kohei is trying his best to integrate into society, despite his pariah status. Michiru, on the other hand, has already given up. Michiru's fear isn't that the tenants are evil, but that their cruelty is contagious, and that staying in Nakayoshi Apartments means becoming like the people who live there. His isolation, distrust, and obsession with sanctification aren't about salvation so much as they are about containment. The ritual is a boundary. It becomes a way to keep the world at arm's length. The young woman in apartment 305 acts as the building's cryptid. Upon looking, we can see that nobody's actually there. She asks us to help her put together the bed frame we just delivered. Naturally, we do so. There's no schedule we have to follow. We can spend 30 minutes building this random woman a bed frame. The cryptid woman is evidence that contamination is already happening within Nakayoshi Apartments. Unlike Michiru, who keeps his distance, this woman pulls us in closer. She forces us to become more than a passive observer. We are now physically implicated and made painfully aware that something isn't right, whether we like it or not. This is also the first moment the building itself seems unable to contain what's happening inside it. Social cruelty and isolation up until now were mostly invisible. Its presence was still within the realm of plausible deniability. This is not. And what's worse is there's no reaction. No alarms are raised, nobody seems disturbed by the inexplicable dripping blood. It's just there. This woman, whose name I've now learned is Arisa, completely disappears from her apartment after we finish putting together the bed frame and discover the blood. And she's never seen again. Our next package is to be delivered to room 202. This woman demands that we go recover her kid for her instead of doing it herself, which I always found so bizarre. She cares so little that she doesn't even make the slightest effort to go after her child herself, instead forcing the responsibility on us, something we've encountered more than once now. In doing so, we find ourselves in the room directly above Arisa's. In the corner, there's a pool of blood, likely the source of what was seeping through the ceiling, and on the walls are dozens of framed pictures of a small white fridge. It's within the closet of this empty, bloody fridge apartment that we find the child and bring him back to his mother. This is where the story stops implying cruelty and instead finally starts documenting it.
At night, Mr. Takeo in room 206 was carrying a box filled with beer cans. I asked him, "Do you mind me helping?" "Why the fuck are you trying to help? If you have time to help, you shouldn't be on welfare. You're just a burden to society." I wonder if people around me think that way. Today, I gave a can of cat food to Erica in room 502. I also have a dog, so I thought we might get along well. She told me I was disgusting, but I believed people who loved animals couldn't be bad. I was hurt, but I thought I could get along with Michiru-san in room 401 since we were close in age. I have never seen him out of his room. I decided to visit him. He finally came out, only the third time I've seen him do that. "I don't think anyone can get along with someone like you," he said. That was it. But then he closed the door immediately. Arisa in room 305 is a student. She's also a part-timer at the nearest convenience store. I can tell she is a hard worker, and I respect that. When we passed each other for the first time this morning, I thought she wouldn't say hello. Instead, she said, "Are you stalking me, you ugly fuck?" But I wasn't stalking her.
It's very clear at this point that the residents of Nakayoshi apartment unanimously seem to view Kohei as a drain on society. They exhibit hostility, disgust, fear, and they dehumanize him at every opportunity, and it seems to be in no small part due to his receipt of welfare, though that doesn't always seem to be the case, at least on the surface. And this is where the perspective of the delivery driver matters so much for the story. All of this, as we've just learned, has already happened. We're stepping into a world that already existed, observing it from an outside perspective. The hints of cruelty and the idea of something being off previously only existed as implication. Here, it's spelled out plainly. This is when the major jump scare of the game happens. As we step back into the elevator after delivering the packages, we're suddenly attacked by a silhouetted figure, and we immediately return to reality. Earlier, when we were recovering the baby, there was a potted plant on the balcony that fell. At its landing spot, we find the key to room 404's mailbox. This mailbox contains the third and final letter sent to Kohei.
Kohei, are you okay? I haven't heard from you recently, so I wrote another letter. You tend to get depressed easily, ever since you were a kid. Don't worry too much about your disability. I'm worried, Kohei. Sometimes depression can accumulate and explode. Kohei, you are kinder than anyone I know. Just remember that I'm proud of you. Call me anytime if something happens. Dad and I will always be on your side. You don't have to force yourself to work, you know. By the way, Grandma wants to see your face. Come back home sometime, okay? Mom.
This letter being inside Kohei's mailbox suggests that Kohei hadn't actually received it. As we approach room 404 to deliver our final package of the night, there is no response other than static noise from the speaker. The door slowly opens and the apartment is empty. In the main room, the small white fridge that we saw previously. The delivery man reports this to the police, who rule Kohei's death a suicide. They question the landlord, but we never find out what comes of this. Nakayoshi Apartments had lost its residents and landlord at some point, having its name changed to attract new tenants, and there still haven't been any applications sent in. If we don't read the letter in Kohei's mailbox, the ending changes. Just like his mother had predicted, Kohei had lost it. He had murdered everyone who had wronged him. The guy running with Aikichi, the guy on the balcony staring down at us, the guy knocking on the window before running away when we opened it, and perhaps most importantly, the jump scare we received on the elevator was all Kohei. The person we had been told to sympathize with up until now became the villain. He wasn't the only villain, but he was the only one we understood. He was the only one who, from our perspective, was behaving normally. After this, the tape we had been watching up until now ends, and we find ourselves in the perspective of the landlord. Taking a look at the paper on his desk, we see that Kohei has been paying more for rent than anyone else. Nearly double, in fact. The landlord had been complicit in the discrimination, proving to us that it does go well beyond the cruelty of just the apartment's residents. It's a terrifying feeling knowing that these apartments had been keeping these horrors hidden this entire time and that we were exposed to them by pure chance. After almost a year of this story being on my mind, I eventually came to the conclusion that maybe Night Delivery is a strong story that's just unsatisfying. It feels wrong for so many people to be at fault, with no real justification for anyone's actions. When you get down to it, the question of why did this all happen doesn't have any answer that makes sense. Even after I had figured out that Kohei was the murderer, it still didn't feel right. And I think I now have a good idea of what's eating away at me. Horror often works when it rejects the comforting idea that people are inherently good. In many stories, cruelty is the premise. They ask us to imagine a world where authority fails, or where fear and pressure expose something ugly that was always present. Night Delivery initially seems to operate in that same space, which is why its ending felt complete to me on a purely logical level, even if it was unsatisfying. However, the game takes place in Japan, a society with well-documented stigmas surrounding welfare, mental illness, social exclusion, and the story never explicitly acknowledges these stigmas as being cultural. The context is something the player is expected to already understand or somehow intuit. As a result, the tenant's cruelty exists in a strange limbo. It can be read as systemic, but only if we supply the system ourselves. Otherwise, it just reads as cruelty for the sake of cruelty. And this is where everything falls apart for me. If Night Delivery is relying on our own cultural assumptions to complete the story, then the horror isn't just happening in-game. It's happening in the gap between the game and the player. The more normalized social exclusion feels to you, the more legible the tenant's behavior becomes. But from my perspective, that kind of exclusion feels aberrant rather than ordinary, so the same behavior reads as senseless cruelty. The story stops feeling tragic and then starts feeling alien instead. Impossible to understand. Then there's Kohei. Kohei is positioned as the story's singular moral anchor. The letters sent to him by his mother elicit empathy as we learn about his continued social isolation and vulnerability, only for that anchor to then be removed without any sort of replacement. The reveal at the end that Kohei has killed everyone just betrays the one thread in the game that we could cling to that aligns morality with outcome. The anchor is completely severed from the boat of understanding, and it leaves us drifting in a sea of ambiguity. It forces us to adopt one of two stances. Either we accept that your average person can be pushed to the point that they become violent mass killers, or we accept that Kohei, the person whose story we've been taught to sympathize with, was always capable of this. And neither of these are even remotely satisfying conclusions to reach. It's because of these things that I always felt as though this game hurt me in some way I couldn't explain for a very long time. This lingering sense that I didn't fully grasp what it was trying to say. The thing is, you can't help but feel as though all of this could have just been avoided. But no matter what threads I try to pull at to offer an alternative conclusion, something more redeemable, I can never land on anything better. If only the tenants hadn't been so abusive towards Kohei, right? Then maybe nothing bad would have happened. That's not the story we received, though, and I don't think it will ever fully reconcile within my mind.